아와 청춘 소년들아 청춘을 허송 말고 올 일을 하여보세 인간의 백행전보 중요받고 또 있는가 왕상은 고르어요 얼음 궁징어 얻고.
Welcome to a new installment of Look and Listen, our monthly online exploration of the intersections of Asian art and music. I'm Sunwoo Hwang, Korean Program Associate at the Freer and Sackler Galleries, the Smithsonian's National Museum of Asian Art. What you just heard was an excerpt from the Korean repertoire of musical storytelling called Pansori. You are also looking at a 19th century painting of a Pansori performance and a glimpse of our featured performer. In this episode, we'll explore some underlying values of traditional Korean culture through one of the classics of Pansori titled The Song of Sim Cheong. At the same time, we'll take a close look at a few selected Korean artworks that highlight important themes of the story. Our performer today, joining us from Columbus, Ohio, is Professor Chan E Park, an accomplished scholar and performer of the Pansori genre. She is Professor Emeritus at Ohio State University and the author of an important book on Pansori, Voices from the Straw Mat, toward an ethnography of Korean story singing. We're also joined from Cleveland, Ohio by Dr. Sooa Im McCormick, who is curator of Korean art at the Cleveland Museum of Art. She recently organized a special exhibition titled Gold Needles, Korean Embroidery Arts, which explores gender and socioeconomic diversity in Korean textile art. Professor Park, before we listen to your performance today, could you tell our audience what Pansori is?
Pansori is Korean traditional story singing. As dramatic narrative with poetic elements, it overlaps with several genres. The origins of Pansori are in folklore and popular and healing ritual singing and classical literature. In the 18th century, early scholars discovered performances of what we today call Pansori in the southwestern provinces of the Korean peninsula. From its folkloric origins, Pansori gained popularity throughout the 19th century with aristocratic patronage, which was based on a Confucian caste system. Through scholarly and aristocratic attention, a more formal 5-narrative canon was produced. Each of the 5 narratives aligned with one of the 5 signature Confucian cardinal virtues. The Song of Sim Cheong, for example, emphasizes filial piety or devotion to one's parents. Beyond their usefulness in training Confucian values, the texts and songs are richly detailed tapestries of social life, material and immaterial culture and knowledges, along with historical and regional language variation. Through a variety of media and staging, Pansori continues to educate and entertain. Now, entering the 20th century, Korea encountered great waves of modernization, introducing the Western cultural practices and values. The widespread popularity of new musical and dramatic genres endangered the existence of this ancient storytelling art. In response, the government, academic sectors, and cultural organizations labored to preserve Pansori as a cultural treasure for education and perpetuity. Pansori is typically performed with two people on a stage. The singer stands with a fan for crowd use and drummer seated on the floor. I will be accompanying, as I don't see any drummer here, I will accompany myself on the drum.
Thank you, Chan, very much for the introduction about Pansori. As you mentioned, Pansori pieces often highlight the moralistic values through a heartfelt human drama. Chan will perform a few excerpts from the Song of Sim Cheong, 심청가 in Korean. It is a story about a strong woman and devoted daughter named Sim Cheong, who sacrificed her life to cure her father's blindness. She does this by throwing herself into the ocean in return for 300 sacks of rice so that her father could regain his eyesight. As a reward for such filial piety, she is resurrected and eventually reunited with her father. Such profound sentiments about family devotion are beautifully expressed in many Korean paintings, especially dating to the late 19th century. In this colorful 8-panel folding screen of the late 19th century, we can see 8 characters placed on the upper portion of the panels. These characters represent the crucial ethical values. From right to left, enormous reading East Asian folding screens, filial piety, brotherly love, loyalty, trust, propriety, justice, modesty, and finally, humility. In the first panel, you can see the character that refers to filial piety, hyo, pronounced in Korean, yet written in classical Chinese script. As you can see, the artist included symbolic imagery of moral values, all originated from classical Confucian books. Let's take a look at the panel which bears the character for filial piety. Around it, you see the image of bamboo shoot or carp, both symbolizing filial devotions. The origin of this symbolism was ancient Chinese text, such as the 24 exemplars of filial piety. In the story of Mengzhong, a young man needed to cure his elderly mother who has fallen sick. The only cure was a medicinal broth made of fresh bamboo shoots. The test sounds simple, but this event took place in ancient China during the harsh winter. Not surprisingly, it is extremely difficult to find fresh bamboo shoots in the middle of winter, but his persistence moves heaven and earth. The earth suddenly cracks open and fresh bamboo shoots emerges. He collects these miraculous bamboo shoots and his mother is cured.
Thank you, Sooa, for sharing the precious screen paintings and their messages. This is a song that previews the story of Sim Cheong, also with messages. 아와 청춘, 소년들아, 청춘을 허송 말고 일을 하여 보세. 인간의 백행전보 중요받고 또 있는가. 왕상은 보여요. 얼음 궁징어 얻고 맹종은 죽어요. 눈 가운데 죽순을 얻어 양빈석교를 하여 있고 출천태효 심청이나 부친 눈을 띄우려고 남경장사 살인들께 300석에 몸이 달려 인강수 제수두시여 살신성묘 거션둔 하나님이 감동어사 인도 완생을 다시 시켜이 대련을 배설어였네 거룩하신 효성심을 과거 맹종이가 당할 소냐 서산에 저기는 해는 끈으로 매여두고 한없이 축하하세 하나리 대신 효성심을 우리들에게 받들어서 전주 유전을 넣읍시다.
Thank you, Chan, for that wonderful song which praises the value of filial piety. Let's turn now to the theme of dragons, who play an important role in the story of Sim Cheong. Dragons are mythical, auspicious creatures that possess symbolic significance in East Asian cultures. Traditionally thought to dwell in rivers, seas, and clouds, dragons are believed to have the power to bring rain, which is essential for good harvest. Dragons can also be protective creatures, ensuring the safety of travelers who ply the waves by ship. In the Song of Sim Cheong, a dragon serves as the king of sea and resides in his underwater palace full of treasures. Although the Dragon King is portrayed as a fearsome creature who evokes horrific storms in the beginning of the story, he turns out to be a benevolent being who saves the life of a devoted daughter. Supernatural creatures like dragons don't occur in nature, so artists can imagine them in a variety of forms. However, they are most commonly depicted as a snake-like creature with 4 legs, as you see in this blue dragon painted on a porcelain jar. Here, 2 4-clawed dragons with bulging eyes fly through a sky filled with clouds. Painted with a cobalt-based pigment under transparent glaze, its scaled body is represented in various shades of blue. Given their supernatural character, dragons in East Asia are not only associated with water, but also with the power of rulers. As a symbol of royal authority, dragon designs on porcelain were reserved for exclusive use by the court of the Joseon kings until the 18th century. Large jars with dragon motifs were produced for ceremonial use to contain wine or to hold flowers. However, by the 19th century, when this jar was produced, private kilns had spread and begun providing wares for a wider public, including items with the dragon motif. The relatively large head in proportion to the body and unthreatening expression are stylistic features of this period. Another highlight of the Song of Sim Cheong comes when the heroine is resurrected in a lotus flower, after she was thought to have died when sailors sacrificed her to the Dragon King of the sea. The lotus has long been associated with Buddhism and serves as a symbol of purity because of the way its seemingly untainted flowers emerge from muddy ponds and pools where the plant grows. Another important meaning of the lotus in Buddhist tradition is rebirth, as the souls of faithful are believed to be reborn on lotus blossoms in the paradise of the Buddha Amitabha. The lotus motif started to appear in the arts of Korea when Buddhism reached the peninsula in the 4th century from its origins in India through China. As Buddhism flourished over nearly a millennium under Korean court patronage, the lotus became a popular motif, not only in religious art, but also in secular works of art, including paintings and ceramics. Produced in the 13th century during the Goryeo dynasty, this green glazed ewer is inspired by the shape of a lotus bud, its tight blossom emphasized by deep copper red pigment, which outlines each floral petal. Little dots of white liquid clay are also applied to the petals as naturalistic accents. Even the spout of the ewer takes the shape of a curled lotus leaf. A beautiful detail of this ewer is a scene on the shoulder of the vessel, where small boys hold lotus buds in a pond. Perhaps they are also representation of reborn souls, just like Sim Cheong, who is resurrected on a lotus flower. Although Buddhism was no longer the state religion when the Song of Sim Cheong was widely performed during the Joseon period, a deep-rooted Buddhist tradition is reflected in the narrative of Sim Cheong's safe return to this world through a lotus flower. Now let's turn back to Chan to hear some of the highlights of the Song of Sim Cheong.
Thank you, Sunwoo, for pointing out the symbolism and beauty of lotus and dragon mystique in Korean pottery. Lotus and dragon are precisely what brought Sim Cheong back to life. Singing and drumming are precisely what bring the story of Sim Cheong to you. Her mother died shortly after giving birth to her. Her blind father raised her with help from the nursing mothers of the village. She grew up to be a beautiful 15-year-old with a loving heart. One day, her father recklessly pledged to donate 300 bags of sacrificial rice to a nearby temple in return for prayers for recovery of his sight. As a way of procuring the impossible sum, she sold her dear life to a group of merchant sailors as a human sacrifice, believed to placate the wrath of the Dragon King and ensure them a safe and prosperous voyage. Sim Cheong went with the sailors to the sea and drowned herself. Moved by her self-immolating devotion, heaven restores her to life in a most unusual lotus bud floating where she drew her last breath. Meanwhile, the sailors were returning home with the fortune they amassed. In passing the sacrificial site, they reminisce about the beautiful Sim Cheong, the budding life they cut short. They dedicate a memorial ceremony to console her spirit. 보고 두리둥둥 울리면서 슬피 울며 지지된다 몫이로다 이너기너기냐 오장원득 낙상원은 공명무 녹도 아니요 삼년부 관우 조회왕덕도 아니요 부친 눈을 띄우려고 300석은 몸이 팔려 임당수치에 수드신 시음낭자는 너기로구나 혼이라도 부셨거든 많이 금양을 하옵소서 제물을 무려 풀고 눈물 씻고 바라보니 무엇이 떠있난디 세상을 못 본 배라 보사고기 30마리 저것이 무엇이냐 금이냐 금이란 말씀 당치 않소. 옛날 진편이가 범마부를 잡으려고 황금 4만 근원 초군 중에다 흩었으니 방법이 있으니까 그러면 저게 옥이냐? 옥이란 말씀 당치 않소. 화분곤산 불이 붙어 옥서이 모두 다 탔으니 오가 여기 있으니까 그러면 저게 해당화냐? 해당화란 말씀 당치 않소. 경사심리가 아니거든 해당화의 되오니까 그러면 무엇이냐? 가까이 가서 보자. 저라 어기요 어기야 우게라 가까이 가서 보니 행기 진동하고 새 체온이 어리었구나. A lotus drifts on the salty ocean, radiating fragrance and enchanting hues. The sailors brought it up onto the deck and returned home. At the dividend distribution time, the chief boatman took nothing except the lotus. No gold, no silk, no diamond, just the lotus. What insider trading secret did he have? At that time, the empress had died, and the country was in royal mourning. Instead of remarrying, the emperor was trying his hand at horticulture. He was soothing his loneliness by collecting rare plants from all over the world. Imagine the emperor's delight when the chief boatman of the merchant ship presented him with a flower from the sea. The emperor rewarded him with title, position, and handsome salary, and had the lotus planted in the choicest spot in his garden. 천재 보시고 좋아라고 이 꽃이 웬 꽃이냐? 이 꽃이 웬 꽃이냐? 이어지도 하를 동방사기 나온 지가 3000년이 못다 되니 벽도 아니요 극락 슬게 연화꽃이 어려져서 해상의 둥둥 떠왔난디 그 꽃 이름을 강선하라 지으시고 조석으로 구엉하실 적에 이랴는 천자 심신이 한란하여 화계 사물건이 난디 뜻밖의 강선화 벌어지며 소녀들이 서있거날 천자 그리 여겨 너희들이 귀신이냐 사람이냐 시녀 이하고 여자오되 남의 영공 시녀로서 심소재를 미우시고 세상에 나왔다가 불의의 천안을 범하여 싸우니 황공무지하여이다. 이 말이지요. 마듯 이로 물경 한 곳 이튿날. At the court meeting the morning after, the emperor shares his incredible story with members of his cabinet. Seeing love sparkling in the emperor's eyes at last, the ministers in one voice urge him to follow the will of heaven by marrying her. The royal wedding took place on the most auspicious day of the 5th month.
The excerpt Chan just sang concludes with Sim Cheong's wedding to the emperor. I believe Sim Cheong might have worn a beautiful wedding gown, a lot like the one in the collection of the Cleveland Museum of Art I'm going to introduce you now. This type of wedding gown is called hwarot in Korean, and it is considered the most elaborate and luxurious type of ceremonial dress. It was originally designed in the royal court for a princess wedding ceremony. By the late 19th century, however, commoners were allowed to wear one. Both front and the back of the wedding gown are exquisitely embroidered in colorful silk threads. This detail here shows a series of symbolic motifs of good fortune. Butterflies stand for marital happiness. The phoenix represents numerous offspring, and white cranes means longevity. Blossoming lotus flowers are embroidered at the central part of the wedding gown. In a Buddhist context, lotus flowers symbolize the rebirth to the heavenly paradise. But in the context of Neo-Confucianism during the Joseon period, when proper rites of passages were emphasized as a moral values, lotus flowers in a wedding ceremony also may have meant the rebirth of a married woman as a virtuous wife and a mother. Due to its expensive silk material and intricate embroidery work, we may assume that this type of bridal gown attests to the life of luxury. However, this very gown, which the Cleveland Museum of Art acquired in Seoul in 1916, was worn by many brides over the course of several decades who live in a working-class community. We can see many traces of repairs, trimmings, and patchwork. And these reflect the commitment of Joseon period women to value Neo-Confucian aesthetics of frugality and modesty. Substantial repairs and patching reveal that this gown served as an important communal resource to be shared and passed down through several generations. Only its collar and sleeves, which are made of thick paper, are replaced with new ones, while the robe itself was reused for decades. For the final work of art, I have chosen a hanging scroll that depicts a flock of geese descending on a sandbar and crying for each other's company. I think this ink painting's poetic aesthetic well reflects Chan's next and final song, which portrays Sim Cheong's longing for her father. Many Korean paintings employ geese as a symbol of the seasonal change from fall to winter, as they migrate from Siberia to Korea, where they spend the late fall and winter. Geese paintings were also widely appreciated as a birthday gift, especially to elders, because the homophone of geese and reeds, no-an, in Korean, means aging peacefully.
Thank you, Sooa, for introducing these rare treasures from your museum. Though happily married, Empress Sim agonizes over her father's whereabouts. Is he starving? Is he cold? Did he regain his sight? Is he dead? Ah, my poor father. 그때여 희망 부귀는 못 삼거나 다만 붙인 생각뿐이로구나. 이리하는 옥난간에 높이 앉아 허여 산호 주령 무빛이여 둘째 청천 높이 떠서 울고 아니 심황후 기가 막혀 길을 불러 말을 한다 오늘 저기로 가 소중한 국회상 그 편지 전튼 기록이냐 도화동을 가고 들라 불쌍 것이 우리 진전의 편지 장렬하여라 방으로 들어와 편지를 수려올째 혼자 쓰고 눈물을 짓고 주자 쓰고 한숨 실적고 눈물이 먼저 떨어져서 글자마다 숨불기 괜히 어느가 웃차기로구나 편지 접어 손에 들고 눈을 열고 바라보니 기러기도 간고 없고 장망 밖의 별과 달만 두려시 밝았구나. In order to help his queen find her father, the emperor holds 100-day royal banquet for all the blind men of the country. On the last day, blind man Sim arrives, and in his amazement at meeting again the daughter he believed had died, blind man Sim regains his sight.
Thank you, Chan, for that final excerpt from the Song of Sim Cheong. As many of us are celebrating the Lunar New Year without being able to gather with close friends and families, I think the last song on the theme of longing for loved ones makes a perfect finale to our program today. Sim Cheong's longing for her father eventually led to a happy reunion of father and daughter and a miraculous cure of blind man Sim. I'd like to thank you all for watching this latest installment of Look and Listen. I hope you enjoyed our musical journey exploring Pansori and the heart-touching story of Sim Cheong through a variety of Korean artworks with experience designed to ignite your senses and spark your imagination. I'd like to thank Professor Chan E Park for her wonderful performance and Dr. Sooa Im McCormick for enriching our program by sharing beautiful examples of Korean art at the Cleveland Museum of Art. I'd also like to thank Michael Wilpers, Utomo Wikasono, and the entire technical team that produced our show today. I'm Sunwoo Hwang, signing off and wishing you peace and well-being until our next program.